Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of As the Walk Returns. I am Mandy, and I am joined today by Kristal Wynn. And Kristal is a nurse and works out of a large senior living community in Denver, Colorado. Welcome, Kristal.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Don't be nervous. It's okay. So Kristal and I today are going to talk a little bit about what her experience has been like in senior living as a nurse and as a director of a community. And we'll probably touch a little bit on what the day in the life of a caregiver is. So I'm really excited about this conversation, Kristal.
Thank you. Me too.
Okay, so let's kick it off. So let's talk a little bit about a day in the life. And just so for the audience knows, we're recording on a Monday, which is probably the worst day to record a podcast for you. So thank you for being flexible. But so aside from a Monday, let's say it's like a Wednesday afternoon. And
Tuesdays are good. I like Tuesdays.
Okay, it's Tuesday afternoon. We're pretending. What does a day in the life kind of look like from your seat?
As an assisted living director, I'm in charge of the day-to-day clinical operations. So it's very much, I hate to say it, it's putting out a lot of fires. It's running a lot of interference. It's, making sure our residents are safe. Their health is managed. A lot of phone calls to doctors, a lot of communication with family members. I like to, first thing in the morning after my morning meeting, take a pass through the dining room just to see some of the faces that maybe are a little more independent and I don't see them that often during the day. So I like to say hi and just let them know, hey, I'm here if you need anything. But yeah, it's a lot of managing healthcare and medications and speaking with doctors and family members. I think would sum it up in a nutshell.
Okay, that seems like a lot. And when you say fires, we're not talking literal fires, God forbid. Just nobody has time for that.
Little
right?
Fires, big fires, actual fires.
No actual fires. We don't want to put that out into the universe.
No.
Okay.
Fire drills. We do fire drills.
Yeah, we do a lot of fire drills. Yes, we sure do. Okay. All right. So busy, a very busy thing. And that's just from the resident side. And you've got, I think, over 60 caregivers at that community, or more. So I'm assuming that also takes up quite a bit of your bandwidth as well.
Yes. A lot of communication with caregivers, a lot of collaboration, a lot of just overall, yeah, the caregivers are really like my eyes and ears out there. So I have a lot of daily communication with them. If there's ever a change in a resident or anything that they need, they're reaching out to me. So I get a lot of phone calls to rooms. Kristal, room 205, please, stat. So a lot of things like that. I think, communication is big.
Yeah. Okay. So and we've mentioned this to the audience before, but so Kristal, I wear kind of two hats in this podcast. One is the CEO of a senior living community or company, I should say. And then on the other hand, my mom lives in memory care for almost a year now. So I kind of straddle both sides of the environment, or I don't know what the right word is there. So from a daughter's perspective, what do you think typical communication looks like? And the audience knows also I live out of state. My brother lives very close to her. So, if I happen to have a question, about my mom or something, is that just kind of, can you set expectations in terms of how often we would be talking if you were caring for my mom?
Yeah. So as often or as little as you would like, there are certain circumstances where it always warrants a phone call or even sometimes a care conference. Usually that involves if there's like a change of condition for a resident, if they have a fall or an injury, if maybe they have a decline or they need additional care, we'll usually make an initial phone call to the family member. Text message, email as well. I have a very open door policy. So I have family members emailing me and texting me on the weekends during the, overnight. I don't always get to the overnight text, but I will definitely answer by the next morning. But I believe over communicating is better, but I also have some families that don't tend to like, calls for what they would think would be a frivolous issue. So it's just figuring out what really warrants a phone call right away and what can maybe wait, or maybe a text message or email will do.
And have you found like having those, I shouldn't say maybe boundaries is the wrong word, but like having those clear expectations, like, hey, we're going to probably call you, well, we are going to call you if you have a fall, or mom has a skin tear, or, you know, something we need to talk about different medications because she's super anxious right now, or whatever the situation is, as opposed to, you know, mom has a hangnail, you know, or, you know, mom didn't have her pillows fluffed properly. Like, so how do you kind of balance out, you know, maybe different children in the mix and kind of like all those dynamics?
Well, I think setting expectations early on and often, especially if some of those boundaries are being crossed, I think is really important. I start following the resident even before they set foot in our building. So we do what's called a pre-admission assessment, where I visit their current living situation. So whether that's in our independent living, or if they're living in a private home or another assisted living, I will make a stop there just to kind of review what their needs are, as well as talk to the families, answer any questions, and kind of manage expectations on, once they arrive in our building, what what they can expect from myself, what type of communication they will receive, as well as reviewing their medications and the different care needs that they have.
Okay. So
I do have, for instance, sorry to cut you off. I do have a family member, for instance, I have a couple of them actually that have many different children. So they've got a daughter that takes care of their medications, and a daughter that takes care of their CPAP machine, and one that handles their doctor's appointments. So I'm used to managing that on a day-to-day basis, and it's just a matter of, I have one point of contact that I go to if there's an emergent situation. And then if they have a question, I will have, family members reaching out for specific areas that they focus on. So I have that a lot as well. And it's hard sometimes navigating those dynamics. I was the daughter myself. I have 4 siblings. I'm the second youngest of 5. So, when my parents were going through similar health issues, they would come to me because I was the main, healthcare personnel. I was the one that, knew all the medical lingo and can kind of, understand the situation and what was going on. So, being that I've been in that situation before, it's kind of a little easier for me to kind of navigate that and understand what the family members are going through as well.
Also, 1 of 5. I'm the oldest, so I totally.
A little different in the pecking order, but yeah.
A little different, but still all those dynamics and expectations and feelings and all those things come into play. It's almost like you're, I don't know, reliving your childhood all over again, right? But like a very different dynamic.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So just to recap with everyone, you probably are not going to get a daily phone call, text, email like you would see at a hospital, right? Like, this is going to be more of an exception to the rule if there's a change or if there's a need. Not to say you can't reach out more often, but I think, again, setting expectations, this is not just, again, from my perspective, I'm not hearing from the nurses every day. And if I was, something's probably wrong. We need to have a conversation.
Yeah, there's an issue. We may need to bring in additional resources if it's a daily phone call. Now, if they're having a health crisis or concern, such as maybe they're dealing with a bout of pneumonia or something like that, at times like that, you may get additional calls. But for the most part, yeah, it would usually be if there's just a change in condition or a specific area that we need to speak about. Okay.
All right, great. That's super helpful. All right, so let's talk a little bit about all those staff members that also work in the building, our wonderful caregivers. Mm-hmm. So, we can't run this industry without caregivers. Like, it won't work. They're so important to the industry and obviously those relationships they build with the residents and with the family members. So can you talk just a little bit about also a day in the life of a caregiver and what they experience?
Yeah. That is definitely a career of passion. To be a caregiver, they are our eyes and ears out there, and they don't get into this industry without having a passion for senior living and for the residents that they care for. It's not just a paycheck to them. So definitely our boots on the ground. They're the ones that first thing in the morning, they get their assignment and they hit the ground running. They're immediately going in and doing wake-ups, helping our residents that need assistance with dressing or different activities of daily living. They're showering, they're escorting to activities in dining room, they're answering call lights. They're definitely running from start to finish. I'd like to see like one of their pedometers or like their step monitors just to see, because I'm sure they're getting their steps in during the day.
For sure. And then the same thing kind of on the evening shift too. It's like everything in reverse, right? Like dinner
We
time.
immediately start with the afternoon toileting, and then it's dinner, and then it's getting ready for bed. And then, we have some caregivers that administer medication, so they're standing behind a med cart all day long. So definitely the same situation, just like you said, in reverse. Yeah, a lot of running around and a lot of answering call lights and handling resident needs. And then they're coming to me if there's anything that needs to be escalated. I have daily, hourly, sometimes communication with caregivers. If there's a resident that has a change in condition, I really depend on my caregivers to, make me aware, because they're the ones that are interacting and having these interactions and seeing these residents every day in a different light than I'm seeing them. So I'm not necessarily always witnessing a transfer. So they'll come to me and say, hey, so-and-so required 2 people today. It was a little harder to get her out of bed. And then from there, from a nursing assessment standpoint, I'll go in and make any changes and speak to family members and handle all of that stuff. But yeah, I definitely depend on my caregivers. I say every nurse should have been a caregiver or a CNA at one point in their career, just so that we can really see, step in their shoes and see what they go through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very physical job, but it's also an incredibly emotional job as well. So you're having these staff members like, in a very intimate way, if you're getting someone dressed or, giving them a shower or, making sure they're getting the right medications. I mean, all those things are true human to human connections. And we rely on them to be able to pick up on those subtle nuances that, hey, mom's may not be having a great day. Let's keep an eye on her this afternoon, see if she's getting a little bit better tomorrow. She's, really wound up about, so-and-so. So I would say, from a family member's perspective, when you go into a community, just assume that those caregivers have run not only the physical gauntlet, but the emotional gauntlet as well. You don't know if they've just said their last goodbye to a resident or welcomed a brand new resident into a community or sat with a crying family member. Like you don't know. And probably all those things happened in one day.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I mean, for them, and not to mention their personal life as well, they
Right.
could have just said goodbye to a family member, have a sick child in the hospital. But our caregivers are really good at kind of putting that at the door, leaving that at the door, and, coming in knowing that, okay, I'm here to do a job. I'm here to take care of your family member, and really treating your family member as one of their family as well. I had a resident pass away last week, and she was an integral part of our community. And our entire staff lined the hallway as, they were taking her out of the building. And the family member just called me the next day, and they're like, I just want to say, like, thank you. The way that you treated my mom was so special. And I think it helps because our caregivers are humans, and they've gone through similar situations, and coming into the situation with with the experience that they have, I think really helps them to know that if it was my family member, I'd want them to be treated the same way. So it's a very special moment.
Absolutely. And, as I'm wearing the hat of a daughter, right? If I'm going into a community, I was at my mom's community, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago. And, I go in and she had candy wrappers all over her room. And I don't know where anyway, didn't matter. They were on the floor. They were hiding in cupboards.
Like sweets.
Yeah, clearly she's having some sweets. And, I had to think about it. I was like, am I going to be mad that no one picked up these candy wrappers? Or did my mom just do this in the last hour? No one's been in? Or, does it matter at the end of the day? And I just kind of thought, this doesn't matter. Mom's happy. She had some sweets. I'll pick up the candy wrappers. I'm not going to go out there and berate the caregivers for not picking up the candy wrappers. Like, that's just not something that is to the level. Well, I certainly wouldn't bring it up to a director, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important too for family members to understand, like, you're still a part of this process, and you still have to, like, I understand, like, we pay a lot of money, for my mom's care, and the residents that live with us, they pay a lot of money, but that, also doesn't, I guess, absolve you from also kind of like helping where you can, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important too, that it's not just like a, hey, we'll pay the check and it's hands off and we're not going to be involved anymore. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important. I mean, this is assisted living after all. You know, we definitely want residents and family members to try to maintain as much of a sense of autonomy as possible. You know, we're all about promoting independence here. And when we need to step in and offer additional care, we will, obviously. But, you know, I think it's important. A lot of things are taken away, or in the residents' eyes, they may see that it's taken away when they come here. Meals are a big thing. You know, that's one thing that they can maintain independence with. And then I have a resident that wants to do her own housekeeping. You know, it's important for her to sweep her own floors.
Sure.
You know, so I mean, we assess the situation. Every situation is different, but we definitely want to make sure we keep that sense of independence as much as possible, and pick our battles. I mean, that's the only thing I could say. You know, there's a lot that happens in a day to day that family members aren't even aware of that a caregiver is doing. You know, or a nurse or a QMAP, med aid. So yeah, it's definitely important to know when you need to be the squeaky wheel, and then know when, maybe it's something that you could also take accountability for as well.
Yeah, and I agree. I love that advice. It's just, candy wrappers, or, my mom is just notoriously messy anyway. It's like, okay, well, that didn't change because she lived at her home versus living in a community. That's just my mom, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Now, if there's candy wrappers all over the floor, maybe, or it becomes a fall hazard or something like that,
Sure.
then maybe we need to look into
Sure.
if it's something that would affect her safety.
Or we like the ants got in, right? Because of the candy wrappers. Then we're going to have a
Or
conversation.
fruit flies, or, yeah.
Ugh, yeah. But yeah, residents do tend to hoard things. It's always the cookies and the bananas, right? Like, I don't know what it is with the
To-go containers everywhere.
what, yogurt containers?
To-go containers.
Oh, to-go containers. Oh, yeah. Yes,
and then they forget about it or put it up on a shelf somewhere. So I've ended up care planning a lot of, weekly fridge cleanouts because of that.
Yes. They have good intentions of eating it later, and I don't know, breakfast.
Just like us. Like,
Sure.
I'm not going to eat that tomorrow. Yeah.
No. You go through the process at the restaurant of boxing it up, right? Like you have every intention of eating it tomorrow.
Yeah, and then you get something else.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's just being a human. That's just the way it goes. Oh my goodness. So Krystal, how have you been successful in building relationships? Obviously, you're with a big family. I'm with a big family. Let's just say that you've got a large family. Maybe they're not all in alignment, but you do have that one point of contact, right? That's going to be your first phone call. But you've got a daughter, kind of a rogue daughter, that's just all of a sudden popping up every once in a while and providing her, we'll say, insights. Maybe see mom once a year, every couple of years, and has her opinion. How do you manage those types of relationships?
Yeah, it's definitely something that happens in my day-to-day. So every single day I'm communicating with different families. I can think of probably 3 right now that have similar situations, to where I have one daughter calling me for this, and then the son is always here. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. I was a family member. My mom was in Florida when she got really sick, and so I was having to speak to the nurses from Colorado. So it's definitely something that I see every day. And I think the most important thing is open communication, and having that open line too, for them knowing that they can call me or text me at any time. If they have a question about their mom, I'm not necessarily going to, always be reaching out to them. If there's a change in condition, I'll probably go through the main person or the main point of contact and hope that they matriculate down the information. But just knowing that there's an open line of communication. So if they have any questions or concerns about their family member, they can always reach out. And I do I like to set biannual care conferences. That's kind of just part of our processes. So we have a care conference usually on admission, and then every 6 months, I like to reassess if there's no change of condition in between then, and then set a care conference and, invite everyone to that conference so that at least everyone can get the same information at one time. And then we also send notes after as well. So I'll send them kind of a follow-up email, just what was discussed and, what we talked about. So it's really just about maintaining that active communication and making them aware that they can also reach out to me if they have any questions.
I think that's great too. And we talked a little bit about, reliving your childhood, and I can speak from personal experience. The way that my mom may act towards me is different than my brother, which is different than the other brother, right? So don't think that your mom or dad isn't, playing up um, your own individual personalities or trying to get what they want. At the end of the day, they are, pretty good at it. So oftentimes it's, even if there is dysfunction amongst the sibling groups, like if you can come to the realization, like, we are team mom here, we're going to put our past aside and get through this situation as best as we can, but also sharing that piece of information, so that collectively, at least your siblings or other family members are in the bigger loop, as to what's going on.
Agreed. And I mean, I just think about my situation with my mom, and, she was the worst patient. Like, she was in healthcare too. So I would not have wanted to be her nurse. So I was very empathetic in that way as well. And she acted different in front of me than she did her nurses. So,
Yeah,
it's important to know that as far as the dynamics go and everything, and, just kind of taking that into consideration, and knowing that the days for caregivers and for nurses are long, and they can be stressful and hard. And there's a lot of other dynamics, a lot of other things that go into their day to day. So kind of just being empathetic to that, I think, is important. But yeah, keeping that open line of communication is number one, and making sure everyone's on the same page at least once or twice a year, at least once every 6 months, to have those biannual care conferences.
okay, that's great. That's important information for people to know. So, Krystal, I know you've been in the industry a long time. So have I. We all probably could write a book with all the stories we could share. And I've shared some funny ones in the past. So, are there any stories or memories that stick out to you?
Yeah, I started as a CNA in 2006, so that would make next year would be 20 years in the industry. I became a nurse in '09, so 15 years as a nurse. Definitely a lot of stories. I think for me, what stands out the most is just the relationships that I've built. Like, it's crazy. I remember my very first resident that ended up passing away, and I'm still in communication with that family member to this day. She still contacts me. She asks me for medical advice. And she's about that age now where she probably needs senior living, So it's crazy to kind of see that process to where I took care of your mom, and now if I were to still live in the same state, I would probably be taking care of you at some point. So I think it's important to build those relationships. Staff members too, I'm still friends with, CNAs that I worked with 15 years ago. And nurses, I have mentors, lots of mentors, that I look up to, that I still talk to, and they give me advice. And so I think it's just important to realize, even if you don't think you're making a difference at that time, you've touched someone, you've impacted someone's life, and you are making a difference, even if it seems like the smallest, thing or smallest detail at the time.
Absolutely. And I think, especially towards ends of life, emotions are so, highly charged, and you just never know the small kindnesses, that people do for you. And you may not appreciate it at the time, but when you have a little time and perspective, like, I just try and go in with people, having good intent, right? Like, assuming best intent. And if
Mhm.
you go in with that frame of mind, then most things you can get through and move past. So.
Exactly. And like I said, people are in this industry for the fun of it. Like, they really have a passion for senior living and for the residents that they serve. And I think that's really important to kind of know that, at the end of the day, like, we all want the best for your family member.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's when we do employee surveys, the residents are the number one reason that they work there. And it's also the number one reason they leave, the ones that can be really hard on them, or family members that can be hard on them. So, our staff members are as important to us to run the operation as our residents are. So we look at them as equal partners in this. And, we definitely need the family members and residents to understand that it takes a lot of time and training and patience, and a lot of continuous, emotional, regulation too, and having good tools and ways for them to express those things. Like, as you said, you had a resident that was dear that they passed away. I mean, that happens frequently, and it takes a toll on you, and we have to bring in resources to be able to let them grieve in their own ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, Krystal, thank you so much for your time. This has been super insightful, and I'm just grateful for you, and just appreciate all your stories and your advice for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks.